On October 11, 1860, readers of the New York Times found this passage in their paper. A Mr. Lincoln of Illinois, familiarly known as Old Abe, age 51, height 6 feet 7, by profession rail splitter, is to be our next president. The thing seems pretty sure. This was the New York Times editorial board's backing Republican presidential candidate Abraham Lincoln less than a month later. Lincoln would be elected the 16th president of the United States. The 1860 endorsement was one of the earliest for the New York Times editorial board. In September, the board published its latest endorsing Democratic nominee Vice President Kamala Harris for president. The impact of a newspaper's endorsement on an election has been analyzed for decades. A study published in the American Journal of Political Science in 1976 looked at the election of 1964, where the winner was Lyndon B. Johnson, who was the choice of the Times editorial board that year. The researchers came to this conclusion, quote, "It is argued that newspaper endorsements exert an important influence on the outcomes of presidential elections." But the tradition of newspaper editorial boards endorsing their favorite candidate came out of favor last week for at least two renowned publications. The Washington Post announced on Friday, for the first time in more than 30 years, the paper would not make an endorsement for any presidential candidate this year or any future presidential election. Publisher William Lewis writing, "We recognize that this will be read in a range of ways, including as a tacit endorsement of one candidate, or as a condemnation of another, or as an abdication of responsibility. That is inevitable. We don't see it that way. We see it as consistent with the values the Post has always stood for and what we hope for in a leader: character and courage in service to the American ethic, veneration for the rule of law, and respect for human freedom in all its aspects." Lewis adds this move stands as a statement of the Post readers' ability to make up their own minds. According to the Washington Post's own reporting on this development, the paper's editorial staff had drafted an endorsement of Vice President Harris, but it had yet to be published. The Post, citing sources, reports it was the paper's owner, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who called for an end to endorsements. In response to the decision, two Post employees resigned. Subscribers posted on social media screenshots of their cancellation confirmations, and 20 opinion columnists wrote an article saying the decision was, quote, "a terrible mistake." The Washington Post move came on the heels of the Los Angeles Times foregoing an endorsement from its editorial board earlier in the week. Times publisher Patrick Soon-Shiong blocked the board's planned endorsement of Harris for president. The editorial page director, Mariel Garza, and two veteran journalists, Robert Greene and Karen Klein, resigned in protest. Soon-Shiong posted this explanation on X, saying the editorial board was provided the opportunity to draft a factual analysis of all the positive and negative policies by each candidate during their tenures at the White House and how these policies affected the nation. Instead of adopting this path as suggested, the editorial board chose to remain silent, and I accepted their decision. In speaking with the Columbia Journal-Review, Garza said, quote, "I am resigning because I want to make it clear that I am not okay with us being silent. In dangerous times, honest people need to stand up. This is how I'm standing up." Former President Trump's campaign looked to capitalize on the move from the Los Angeles Times owner in an email saying, "In Kamala's own home state, the Los Angeles Times, the state's largest newspaper, has declined to endorse the Harris-Walz ticket. Even her fellow Californians know she's not up for the job." Responding to the LA Times owner, Greene and Klein, the paper's two veteran journalists who resigned, replied that creating the suggested list of pros and cons would fall under the news department, which in a newsroom operates separately from the editorial board. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. For more unbiased updates, download the Straight Arrow News app.